turn you up and let's say hello, 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 hello. Let's see if everyone can hear me now. I'm just gonna quickly make sure that I can hear myself. Is that all right? Is that too loud? Yeah, that sounds all right. Cool. All right, let's get stuck into it. Cool. All right, new series. Couple of things. I completely stuffed up my function app with Git, which effectively lost all of my durable function work. So all the activity's gone, all of it. It's all gone. So yeah, there's a massive stuff up on my behalf, which sucks. Still have the original code, so I'm gonna probably sit on it and then have another go at it and rewrite it, probably from scratch, because it needs to be rewritten from scratch. Yeah. So today's stream is I'm going to be working on the MVP submission script that I wrote when I actually got nominated for MVP. So what I can do is, so essentially, to provide a bit of a backstory for you guys, is that the MVP API does exist, but it only exists for current MVPs. So if you want to make a contribution, you can do it if you're a current MVP, but if you're not, it doesn't work. And believe me, I've already tried. So the only avenue is to actually use the website, which, you know, it's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it. However, if you've got a large amount of tasks, it can be quite daunting, especially if you've got single line entries that you need to add. And there's quite a lot of them. So what we do is I wrote a PowerShell script, which basically uses Selenium by Adam Discol, PS Selenium written by Adam Discol, which is essentially just a wrapper into the Selenium. Excellent. It effectively allows us to leverage that to automate our web submissions. However, there's a lot of work that was needed to be able to actually hold it together. So when submitting it, obviously there was so many different things I was finding and bugs and little things that you wouldn't. I spent about a day of integration testing on the form, and there was things like the script would just randomly stop working for some reason, and I'd have to go and troubleshoot it, and it would be because essentially the JavaScript was actually breaking. I had to make, I think it was like about 200 submissions. So when I was initially submitting them, I was smashing it so hard that the JavaScript itself broke. So I had to back that off, and then there was issues with sometimes the form wouldn't trigger the correct JavaScript event correctly, so that the actual the form wouldn't properly load. So then you would have issues there, and then you just completely just break your entire submission again. So I spent a while writing this code and getting it up to scratch, and then I actually had to spend ages refactoring it initially to kind of get it a little bit more stable, especially with those intermittent bugs like with the select with the JavaScript. JavaScript was the hardest thing to troubleshoot there. So when troubleshooting that, essentially, we're going to refactor a lot of this code anyway. With troubleshooting that, essentially, I had to make a lot of submissions and by hand. Sorry, not by hand, but automated the submissions, and then basically like look at everything. And then there's other things like because this is a US website, it means that all your date times are actually in US time. So there was things like that I had to kind of work out how to convert and things, and how to kind of mitigate that kind of actions and kind of convert the cultures and things like that. So that was quite a bit of a challenge. To be honest, what I did was, rather than doing it in here, which was a lot more effort, I actually changed the logic and then just did it directly. I have a separate a column for US date time, so it just makes it a little bit easier for us to be able to actually submit an entry. But the problem was, is that this is really the key thing which we had trouble with. I had trouble was the JavaScript. The JavaScript, obviously, if you're just smashing a site over and over again, it is going to break. It doesn't matter how good that JavaScript is, it's going to break. And this is what happens. So it would break on like the 50th entry. Actually, no, it was like the 100th entry. So I'd have to go through it. And like you wouldn't know until I actually went and checked every submission manually, and then found all these errors. And I'm like, what's going on here? So I had to then go, all right, we're going to grab the JavaScript, and then essentially write a handler to be able to make sure that that is able to support it. So that's really what we're looking at today. So it's a little bit of fun here. This is actually going to be fairly quick. So you can see there's not much. I'm going to rewrite some logic within here to kind of get it working, and then we're probably going to structure this a little bit better so that I can actually create a GitHub repo and then people can actually contribute to it. So essentially I can build a kind of mid-tier layer of commandlets that people can actually use to actually create, for instance, if they want to automate a specific activity. So let's go down and have a bit of a look. So we've got, select drop down. So this was just an initial, this is actually really bad, but so essentially what it did was it has the capability of selecting a drop down box within a web form. So what we can do here is essentially we pass in our element ID, which is essentially the Selenium element that we're looking for, and then basically we just go find that element, and then once we've done that, we can then go and select the element, and then basically we actually can then select the drop down value by calling select by value. The one gotcha with Selenium that I found was that Selenium doesn't work well with it doesn't work well if you try and select methods outside the commandlets. You got to be very careful. So a good one is selecting keys. You can actually send keys using Selenium directly in the method. There's a way to do that directly in the method. However, what happens is within Selenium, you have the driver, and the driver essentially is the kind of the overarching handler. So what happens here is that you can send keys, but then the driver slowly, and it's over a period of time. What happens is the driver slowly starts to break, and because it slowly starts to break, you kind of see this slowdown in performance on the driver, and then eventually it just crashes altogether, and the page won't load, and nothing loads, and then you're sitting there wondering what's going on. And so yeah, so we'll quickly go through this code a bit. So you can see here it's very basic PowerShell, so we're not talking overly complicated PowerShell or anything like that. And what I was really focusing on was the Reddit posts, because that was really where I do a lot of my MVP activity. Obviously we have, run the user groups and things like that, but there was only like 10 entries, which I was thinking, well, if there's only 10 entries, it actually makes better sense for me to just use, do it manually and then basically focus on the Reddit data. There was also another one, which was LinkedIn data, which was another big one. And LinkedIn was a bit more, I'm just going to turn the volume down a bit. Oh no, that mutes. So LinkedIn was a bit of an interesting one as well, because there was quite a bit more posters than what I expected. And then there was Twitter as well. On Twitter, I just don't track. And so Twitter was just an absolute headache to add. But we did it. Now, you can see in here we have essentially just splatting. There's nothing really that serious. So we're going to start our driver. Now the problem is I can't demo this for two reasons. One, we don't really demo these kinds of things. And two, I can't demo it because I don't have access to it anymore, that specific portal, because I was successful. Fantastic. So I've reached out. I'm hoping that Microsoft can potentially give me a demo environment that I can kind of test privately, because then if I can test it privately, then I know that I have everything that needs to be working, and then basically I can release it and then people can kind of use it. Obviously anything to make anyone's lives easier. So what we've done here is then I've got my Reddit data. So I basically reduced it to this, the data down to CSVs. So essentially we just import the CSV. And then I basically just got, for each post in Reddit data. And then what I did was I laid out what I wanted for that specific post. And then I just call that commandlet. And then essentially the commandlet itself is a specific set of requirements that is a specific set of parameters that we can add into it, which basically automatically adds the entry. So we can quickly step through here. You can see we create a new activity. So we're going to go find add new activity button. So there's actually a nice little add new activity button. Click that. We're going to invoke the click, and then we're going to exit. You can see here we've got a loop. The reason why is because sometimes you need to wait for, once you've added a submission, you need to click add the button again to be able to add another submission. So things like that, which kind of adds it, makes it a little bit more complex. There is quite a bit of start sleep in here, so we're going to go and try and clean that up a bit more as well. And then you see here, select forum third-party activity. Forums in the drop-down box. The reason why is it's in a loop is because JavaScript won't load and will need to be re-triggered. So sometimes when you load it, you kind of actually need to kind of wait and give it another crack at it. I'm selecting drop-down twice. I know why. So this is these little gotchas. Is you actually need to re-trigger the JavaScript. The only way to re-trigger the JavaScript is actually to select the drop-down box. So what I do is there's an article, which is the very top entry. Essentially, I'm resetting the thing. So what I'm going to probably do is I'm going to rewrite a little bit more functions to kind of make it a little bit easier to understand and follow along versus kind of this kind of obfuscation here. And then basically we go through our contributions. Once we go to contributions, obviously then we just select update those elements. The hardest thing in this was actually selecting the drop down. That's probably by far the hardest thing. So us basically me just selecting the drop down, things like that is actually quite easy. It's just that first bit was a bit tricky to kind of get around. So once we've done that, then obviously find the element, submit, and then just basically go ahead and click the button. Now Selenium is really good. So we can actually, what we can do, now this needs to run in PowerShell 5, so might as well crack open. I don't think Selenium supports PowerShell 4. I might just update it. I'm going to update the module, and then we'll see if Selenium supports call yet. You can see here I'm really lazy with my code, so that's why. So we're going to do a fair bit of cleanup here. See if there's a new module out there. There is, fantastic. And we can actually just quickly fire it up. You can kind of see how it works. We can actually, I think we can demo it with just something else, so I can kind of have a bit of an idea what's going on. And hopefully, all of the bugs that we have, we might actually be introducing new bugs, but hopefully a lot of the bugs that we have been fixed. So yeah. All right, so cool. All right, so that's been updated. Let's go and try and import a module. All right, so ultimately you have our driver. So what we can do here is let's create a driver. Let's just go https google.com. See if this is going to fire up our driver. Now you can have different types of drivers. You can have a Google driver. You can have Firefox. Okay, yeah. Permission denied. Yeah. Oh no, it's just installing updates. That's it. That's a fun one. Okay, so essentially what happens is this is what you get as a driver. You can see it's a different kind of Firefox that's running. So let's try it again, see if it's going to play ball. If it doesn't, we'll have to switch to 5.1, that's fine. It looks like it. Hey, look at that, it works, cool. So essentially now we have our driver, and you can actually jump in here, so we can go on driver. We can actually take a bit of a look at the code, and you can see here, please don't do this to me. I bet you it's broken. This is what I'm talking about. Oh, no, it's not, it's not. It's just taking its sweet time. So you can see there's quite a large amount of data, so I'm just going to do a get member on it. So there's, you can see quite a bit of data that you can get. So, and these kinds of methods that you can see in here, from what I remember is these are the ones that, yeah, kind of break. So for instance, you've got driver.keyboard, .keyboard, get member here. You can obviously select keys, press keys, send keys. I know these are the kinds of things that you can do in the driver, but kind of just be careful with them because it's not the, it might not work. But like for instance, let's go send some keys. So the first things we need to do is, we might as well just select it, just see if this works. And so we can go ahead and select test. Object not reference to an instance of an object. Yep, fair enough. So, okay, let's go and select an element. So this is where we break out our inspector. We need to find that element. So what we can probably do is find it by, you can see how there's just classes. Now some divs, obviously what we want is by div, by div ID, but if we don't have that, we can still do it. So now we can go ahead and select an element. So if we go select SE element, select SE, is it? Pretty sure it is. It's been so long since I've used this. Oh, it's find SE, sorry. So we can go find that element. So just go element. And we just go find SE element. And then we just go driver. So we plug our original driver in, and then basically what we're going to say is, I think there's a by class name. And I think we then go compound class names. Class name can have white spaces. Use CSS selectors instead. Okay. Oh, something's hung. Okay, it's back. Oh, yep. Okay, yep. Okay, CSS. So see if we can find it. You see here, it's quite slow. Now that's nothing, I don't think that's to do with Selenium. I think this is actually kind of starting to break. Element, so if we go have a look, we can't find that element. Okay, fantastic. So let's just actually see if we can find something that's a bit more easy to use. Let's try Wikipedia. Let's see if we've got content here. Yeah. Okay. Sort of ID up the top here. Okay, let's just try this one. So we can just grab this one here. Wikipedia.org. That's pretty easy. So if we want to go there, so we can just obviously go Wikipedia. So we need to obviously try and find it now. So you can just go by ID. So we can just go driver by ID. We'll go and try and find it. And if we go element, should get a response. And then once we get a response, we pretty much can start working with it. That's pretty much it. Like it's pretty straightforward. Let's see if we can find an interactive log on prompt and we can kind of mess around with it. So you can see there you got some data about it. So just pretty straightforward. So let's go and try and find. Actually, we've got a drop down box here. So we've got a drop down box here. So let's have a look at this. So here you go. So we've got search language, and we've actually got to select. So we can actually. This is a really good example. So let's go get that element. So we've got the ID. So let's just go ahead and grab it. Now if we retrieve it, we will get all the values in here. So cool. Now the thing that we need to do is, because we're selecting a different drop-down value, we kind of need to muck around here a bit. So what we can actually do is we have we've got our element. This is activity type. And we can actually then just plug this in. Actually, I'm going to replace it with an activity type. And then what we can do here is create a new element. And then we can actually select that type by value. And the value is the actual value of the element. So if you go in here, obviously this is where we kind of need to have a look. The value is going to be, for instance, EU or FR. So let's just change it to French. Let's see what happens here. There you go. So you can see that it's actually changed it. So that's a really handy way of actually changing your drop-down boxes. It's really tricky to kind of muck around in, but it works very well. Sometimes it doesn't, but that's why you kind of write logic to support it. Anyway, let's get stuck into writing some code. So first thing we need to do is I want to kind of write a tentative try, tentative catch function, so we can kind of start refactoring our code so we don't have all these nasty do's and things like that. We can just kind of fob it off into a function that can do that for us. So let's do that. So let's call this. So we're obviously going to need to refactor a lot of this code into a module, that kind of stuff. But ultimately right now, we're just going to and we're going to basically not do that. So so what we're going to need to do here is we're going to be doing some sort of try tentative command. So we'll be doing a tentative. Essentially, we're not totally sure that's going to work, not totally sure that it's not going to work. So we are essentially, we're just going to, yeah, so essentially we're just going to handle this. So we're going to effectively need, we're just going to call it action. So let's just call it try. So what I'm going to do here, I always like the actual, oh my gosh. So we're gonna make it a script block, and then we're just gonna call it try. Now, obviously, these are we don't necessarily need to include we don't necessarily need to include the parameter names themselves, because we can just use the actual we can just use the naming, the position. I actually might add the position now. If I say position 0, if we just, as long as we add a position, then that's fine. We need to try and catch at least. We don't necessarily need a finally. That's not the end of the world. And we can actually just, might as well throw in a retry, something like that here, just a little retry limit or something. So let's just call it end. Let's just go retry limit. And let's do a retry limit of 3. Actually, and then what we can do here is just say position 3. If you want to use it, don't have to. And then manage that. Now, obviously, we're going to be dealing with inheritance here. So essentially, anything we call within a try, we've got to kind of wrap. They effectively needs to be wrapped within anything that's within the try and catch block, or finally needs to be wrapped within a script variable parameter. We don't have access to the anything that we need to address into it, we can wrap inside a script visibility, a script visibility statement, a script variable, sorry. And yeah, let me just go ahead and do that. So obviously we don't need getting process command, so we can just biff that. So first things first, we'll just write a bit of a do. Let me just basically say until retry limit. And if you say counter is equal to 0, let's just call it count. Count is equal to retry limit. Count is equal to retry limit. What we're going to do here is we're just going to go ps commandlet, throw terminating error. Retry limit. So something like that. And whatever gets caught in the output, we're just going to return it as an output. So essentially, if you do a write output of the script block, we'll treat it as a write output. So what we do here is just wrap it in try catch. And then what we need to do here is we need to go so we can go try dot invoke result, and we're going to dot source it in. Actually, no, we can just invoke it, it's fine. And we're going to cap the result, and then we're going to return it if needed. So just down here, we're going to return result. If what we're going to do is say if string is null or empty, let's say just return. Nah, I don't really care. I think we'll just return whatever. That's just adding logic. It doesn't need to be there. So we can just do that. So now the tries will run. Obviously it's failed. So we can go and invoke our catch. I'm just wondering, do we need to catch? So we're going to basically not return anything from the catch statement. So we're going to do here. Ooh. Here we are. We're going to basically invoke it. So essentially, we're going to try a catch with a count limit. If that's at that limit, then we basically throw a thing. The only thing we need to do here is just go count plus increment the counter. So anything that needs to be accessed will need to be wrapped inside a script block, inside a script variable. You can make it inherited. So essentially what we could do is we could pass parameters in, but essentially you'd have to somehow pass those parameters in prior to the try. That's where it gets kind of really complicated. I think I'm just going to wrap it in a script variable just to keep things simple. Let's test it. So we're going to do, I'm just going to create a quick directory. And then I'm going to create a quick directory and we can kind of start structuring some of this code. Okay, so what we can do here is just create a new folder called test. But, let's try a quick pass the test for this. So this is where it kind of gets a little bit tricky because what I might do is just pull this out and shove it in its own so what we need to do here we need to load it. So just thinking out loud what I want to do here. Come back to that. So we're just going to do an it. Actually, yeah, we're just going to have an it. We're just going to write some test cases. I don't like that at all. So if nothing with test cases, essentially you can just write your test case and then pass your test cases in there. So what we need is standard functionality. Just get test cases. And then we can go Marvobot, ps command path dot replace ps1 ps.ps1. Oh, thanks, dude. Oh yeah, I see what you mean. I see what you mean, dude. Yeah, I see what you mean. Thanks, dude. Yeah, that works very well. Just do that. Thank you. That's nice and succinct. But replace, let me just do that. I think it needs to be in the same directory though, I'm pretty sure, so I'm gonna have to kind of flesh that out. But we can kind of work that out. So we're gonna write our test cases. What are we gonna do here? What are we gonna do here? So we need, there's a couple of things we need to test. Essentially, if we kind of going through here, what we need to test is, well, we just need to test standard input. So I think what we're going to do is just test the standard try catch, and then we're going to test the finally. Considering that we have no finally, that's going to be interesting now. I don't know if we're going to test that. Honestly, I'm going to biff it because we don't need it for the time being. I want to write something simple quickly because I kind of want to get back to the task at hand. So try catch, count, retry limit. Okay, we just need to test invoke result. This can be why this is going to be interesting because I'm worried that we're going to have some sort of script block management. Okay. All right. So what we're going to need to do, we're also going to need to have after each. Because essentially we're going to be using script variables. After each test, we should actually clear them out so we don't actually stuff up our following test. Clear out. So what we can do here is we're just going to go tries equal, and then we can just write a script block. So what we can do is we need to write something that is going to succeed. That's the first thing we need to do. So I've also just realized, how am I going to be able to actually, I'll say assert because this is going to be interesting. That's what I'm going to say, this is going to be interesting. So we're going to write something that is successful. So catch doesn't really need to be anything. We can just basically say it's empty. And we're just going to do a write host. Nah, write host is too simple. Let's just do a, we're going to need to mock. We're going to need to mock. We're going to need to mock. Okay, what we're going to do, let's mock. I don't want to mock write output. That's just bad juju. Let's. Is it bad practice to create a? Yes, it is, because essentially it doesn't. Oh, is it bad practice to create an empty function? Because ultimately, I don't care about and then just mock that. But because it's empty, it doesn't need to be mocked. I'm just thinking about how I want to do this. Maybe I'll just write my mocks inside the test cases. So we have global mocks, and then within each of the test case, I can actually. Oh no! Yeah, we're gonna do it in here. I have method to my madness. So what we're gonna do is mock. You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna mock get random because we're not using it. We're just gonna mock get random. Get random is good. What we can do here is let's just go. So we're legitimately mocking get random, so we can actually just go return 1. That's perfectly fine. Just make sure that's a mockable thing. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. We just need to mock. So I'm not interested in the commandlet itself. I'm interested in the output. So should basically say it should be 1. So my idea is to mock get random, return 1, then we can basically, as a separate script block, which we can just pass in. Actually, I'll write my parameters here. Param block. Don't need that. We're just going to go mock, and then we're going to I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know at all, so we're going to try. And then we're going to... Is that a try tentative? Thought there was a try tentative, and I was like, that's cool if there was one on PowerShell 7. But we would still have to write it anyway because we actually no, we might be able to use PowerShell 7. Yeah. Don't worry about me. So we can go try tentative command, and we must just splat it in. Try catch. So we should and then we should just basically be a result should be so that should work. I'm just gonna just paste this in for the sake of failing a test. And I'm just gonna drop this in memory for the time being. See what happens. I generally don't write pester like this. This is the first time I'm doing it. We'll find out. While we're waiting on that, how is everyone's evening, day, morning going? That's a bad start. Let's kill it. I'm just gonna drop it down here. Okay, yeah. Not bad, you. Good, yeah, very good. I'm pretty tired. I'm always tired nowadays, but that's the life of being a parent. But yeah, no, I'm doing good. Life is flat stick. Works okay. I'm having issues with Node.js at the moment. Trying to start a React site, so that's not fun. But yeah, getting there. All right, so let's check out params. Okay, cool. That looks good. Is anything planned for the weekend or this Friday? So just gonna quickly see what's try. That's cool. Oh, what are you doing? There we go. Try. Oh, something's going on here. What's it going? Why is it? What just happened? So first bug, we didn't break the loop. So essentially, we're just going to loop indefinitely because count is only going to be incremented within catch. We should do this. That fixes that. All right, let's try this again. So I have to admit, I actually kind of like this method of writing tests. Just really, well, not using the test cases, but using the test cases for everything, and then just kind of writing a really generic test. Let's just hit it again, see what happens. Oh, I'm out of boo-boo. We have to fix that. Let's do that. There we go. Cool. Look at that. So our failing, we've got a failing test because we're returning 1 and it should be 2. So let's just change that to 1. Look at that. Perfect. Good to go. I like this. This is actually really, really clean. Way cleaner than my other code, which is kind of annoying now because I kind of refactored all my code to be like this. Okay, so the next thing we need to do now is we can parameterize our test. So we can get random, return 1. that's pretty cool. So let's now throw an error. So she's going to try throw, and this is going to be a problem because ultimately now I just realized that we can validate the integrity of catch by doing this. So essentially what I'm saying is throw an error. So if we think about it from a try-catch perspective, it'll throw, it'll create, when we run get random, it'll throw an error. It should launch the catch, which then basically should return to the return, which then should return error. So if we rerun this, we get a fail. Why do we get a fail then? Okay, exceeded retry limit. Which is valid because it hit the retry limit. I'm just trying to think from a design perspective. Does it throw? No, I'm just going to write a warning. I'm going to write a non-terminating error. And then it should. So if we rerun this again, it should work, but it didn't. Why didn't it work? Result. I'll drop a breakpoint there. We can have a look at it. Okay. So let's do this for now. Let's try. Okay, that's perfectly fine. The reason why is probably because it's okay. Reason why is because it's pulling that, so that's fine. So what we can do is it just needs to be this. So what's return? Oh, what's the result then? What type is it? It's an object. Okay. Let's just say, let's have a peek in here. Yeah, it'll be an error record, you're right. I'm just kind of poking around, just want to see. Like, you know what I'm going to do? The problem with this current structure at the moment with the testing is the fact that it's basically doing, yeah. The problem that I'm thinking is, and this is my kind of, is that, like, it's good, like, don't get me wrong, it's really good, this approach, but the problem with it is that you're basically, you're testing on a value, and realistically, I don't really care what it returns as an error. I just care if it returns an error, because right now, we're guaranteed to know that get random is mocked, so there shouldn't be an issue. So what we can actually do is do this. And what that ensures is that get random is being mocked as an error. And then what we can do here is do this. So we can just assert directly in a parameter, and then we're not locking ourselves into a specific type. So if we go ahead and do that for here, and then all we care about is what? Dismiss. So I just deleted everything. We can just then test the type. So we can probably say result. Is there a should be type? Let's go to Pesta. Pesta should. BF type. Look at that. So I don't really care about it because we know that the following command list shouldn't be a type of that. So we can say, I'm actually wondering if this approach essentially is remaking Pesta in Pesta, and it's BF type. Yeah, to an extent. But the thing is that the parameterized testing simplifies the process. So I don't know, I just think it's easier to manage it this way. Because currently at the moment, all my Pesta 5 tests are like calling functions and things like that. And I'm thinking it's actually cleaner to just pull it in an actual test case than it is to actually have it in the test itself, because each test is somewhat different. So what we can do here, and we can also just say result should not be, and we can just basically say as bad, because ultimately those should be linked. But meh, I don't care. Alright, so that's another test case. Let's test it, let's see what happens. We got one pass, and then we got fail. Expected null, we got one. I like the style. It's just throwing me having the mock in there. It's interesting stuff, though. Yeah, it's completely new to me writing this kind of logic, so I like it. I find it's a different way of writing code, but it's a little bit cleaner, to say the least. I think it's just a little bit cleaner. Anyway, expected null, we got one. Try tentative command, standard input, no errors. The only problem I don't like about this with the is I like to see exception calling invoke with 0 arguments. Expected null, we got one. Just get one. The problem I have is that's testing this, so it might look cleaner, but I'm trying to figure out how to actually make this a little bit more readable. Because ultimately, like, the one thing I like about the it statement is you can actually append a, you can just essentially append a variable into it, but because we're basically operating in test cases, we can't. So I was thinking of maybe using the because state, the because, but that kind of is a bit, yeah. I don't know. Okay. So let's test this anyway. So I'm going to rerun this and try and work out what the dealio is. What the dealio is going on. You need to also you need some kind of should throw assertion. I was thinking that, but how can we assert? Like how can you assert like it's a tough one because I could, you know, I could just You've given me an idea. You've actually just given me an idea. We don't actually care what the output is here. We care that it just executes. So you can actually just do this. Could just run another command and then assert off that. And that basically would significantly reduce all this code down to the one line, because then we're just asserting that command. I don't care about the tests. I just don't. But if we assert, what's assert? What's assert? No. Oh no, because it's got to be mocked. I think just. I'm wondering if just simplify and just say to be test. I think maybe I'm going too complicated. Because I'm not caring about the out. I don't care about. I'm caring about the code execution, not the actual. Because I'm caring about the code execution path. I'm not caring about the output as per se. So as long as this specific block was executed, that's all I really care about. I don't care about if what error type. I think that's overcomplicating it. So if we rerun this, let's see what it does. So the result should be 1 here. Yep, and then we should have a result of test. Yep. What did it say? No errors. Expected null. We've got 1. Interesting. So the first test failed for some reason. Why did it fail? The reason why is because that. Rerun that. That should work now. Just going to remove that breakpoint. There we go. 2 test pass. Good. All right. We need to write some more test cases. I'm just going to write a couple more basic ones, and then I want to kind of jump back into, like, we can always clean this up later and write more test cases, but I just want to write a couple more just to kind of make sure that the logic for try tentative works, and then we can kind of step back into the good stuff. So actually we should just go ahead and grab that. So we're going to mock random. I'm just trying to think of something like, what else do we need to test in there? What other use cases? Because I'm like, obviously, try catch works. We need to define a script variable. This is going to be an interesting one. How do I do that prior to execution? I think we need another script lock. Actually, no, we don't. This is what we're going to do. So my idea is, what's going on here? Obviously, no, not that. Cool. Just want to make sure they work. Probably kind of good. All right. So idea here now is we can test external. I could just put it inside the mock, but that just kind of is a bit weird. Try to make sure we can access, which we should. Like, there should be no reason for this not to be working. We're going to we're just going to basically stick it in a variable. We're just going to write output it. I don't think we need to do anything sort of crazy here. So we can just basically go mock. No, we don't even need to mock anything. They can just stay null. And then we can just basically say here, so essentially what we're doing is just saying, hey, can we access our script block? Script block. Can we access our script variable? If we can, fantastic, good to go. We should expect an output. If we don't, we got problems. So let's just run that. And it's broken. Why did it break? Null key is not allowed in a hash literal. What do I stuff up? Get rid of that. Okay, what do we break here? Null key is not allowed in a hash literal. What am I missing here? What am I missing here? Is it mentioning about this? Shouldn't. Nope. What did I break? What did I break? Ah, there it is. Like, what did I break? Let's go ahead and run that. Ooh, got some 3 passes. Cannot buy variable, external variable. Seeded retry limit. Remove variable. I think the reason why is because it's basically, I should have access to it because it's a script variable. It passed, but that kind of worries me. Should have passed. So let's just do that. As Mosh would say, yep, okay, that works. So as Mosh would say, always file your tests before you actually pass them. Make sure that they're working. So now I've just got to kind of work out why it's can't find a variable name with external variable. I'm just going to write that out for a sec, and I'm going to drop a breakpoint on there. Honestly, you know what we should do as well? I should just mock. And I should mock right error. And then we can just assert. Always get this wrong. Exactly. What's it called? I keep forgetting it. There's you don't assert mock called anymore. What's the replacement? Oh, that one has a replacement. It's within should. I just can't remember what it's called. I know it's assert mock called. Commands opposite, you should use should invoke instead. That's what I'm looking for. So we can say here is should invoke right error exactly once. Exactly, that's what we want. Exactly one. Let's see what that does. Fail. Am I doing it in the right one? Yes, I am. Okay, so that's not. Parameter set cannot be resolved. One of the parameters issued is a sufficient number. Invoke parameter set. Okay, we got some problems. Still failed. All right, let's go ahead and debug it. Yeah, it's calling mock. Yep, turns test. Yep. Yep. Should be tests. Yep. Should invoke. Okay, so I'm wrong with my statement. Okay. Should invoke. Should. Yeah, that's a problem. Okay, I just can't remember. I'm pretty sure that should be fine, right? Should invoke right error because we've mocked it. Return be exactly 1. That should be right. I don't think you have be exactly with invoke. I'm pretty sure, like, okay. The only reason why I don't, I've used be exactly before. That's why I'm kind of I think there's a number, like, I just don't know what the number is. Like, because there's like a number of times. Is it exactly? Times. It's exactly. That's what I'm looking for. I was using the wrong parameter. Yeah, that's why. Okay, cool. All right, let's break it. Yep, perfect. Let's make that back to 1. Cool. Yeah, so it's the problem with it is that it's not fully documented, so it's kind of like you kind of just like struggle your way through it. But yeah, okay, cool. All right, that's enough for tests right now. I don't particularly want to write too many tests. I want some just initial test cases. All right, so we know to our alternative command works. All right, so we're going to need to refactor a whole bunch of our code to kind of work with, kind of provide a bit of a framework here. So let's create a new function. Let's just call this click new activity. Actually, let's just call it new activity. A new MVP activity. And ultimately, what we can do we can use try tentative to actually do all the heavy lifting for us, which is actually really cool. So what we can do here is so we have this. We can simplify this by saying params try is this, cat is this. We're going to give it a retry limit, and we're going to change it so that it's 4. And then what we can do here, this is what gets me excited. So essentially, this is what's going to be written out. This is what's going to happen if it fails. And then all we need to do is let it in. Since we're actually expecting activity, we can test it. So we can just test this output. So we can just say, null is equal to result. We can then say, just command it, just code saying error, and say cannot. Like so. So essentially what happens there is pretty much refactored that code now so that try tentative command will handle it, and then we don't have to have any sort of crazy looking contraptions. We actually don't need any parameters. Essentially it just needs to run because it's all actually no, we'll pass through the driver. I need to go and start a new driver to find the type. So what I need to do here is just quickly. Okay. starts with HTTP, HTTPS. Cool. Wait for, excuse me, wait for this to come back. Still would rather get tight. Oh. This is only going to support Firefox or Google. Anything else, like Internet Explorer, sorry, it's not happening. Someone else can have that functionality. I'm just going to start off with Firefox. That's going to be a problem because I'm just going to, that's a generic object. I don't want to have to do this, but we're going to do this. Because we could just inherit it like that. That's obviously another option. We could just inherit the variable. Maybe just do that. Yeah, we'll just inherit it. I'm like, well, the thing is, anyone can then, like, it's, yeah, we're just going to inherit it. We're going to inherit it. The reason why is because I don't know how it's going to handle being passed into functions. Essentially, as a separate variable. I don't know if it's going to like that. If it's better just to kind of inherit it because it's not going to cause issues. We're just going to test. Not the best thing because essentially this is code that is not fully self-contained, but someone can refactor it if they choose to. We can go drive. It's base type. That's a good question. Would be probably yeah, Selenium. OpenQA Selenium, that's what I'm guessing, because Firefox driver, there'll be a Google, there'll be like a Chrome, there would be a The problem with it is that you have different drivers for different things. Actually, no. You just give me an idea. We can just do this. Let's do this. Well, I don't have Google Chrome on here, so I don't know what the exact Google Chrome thing will be. So we kind of have to, I'm just winging it. It probably is going to be like Chrome. And then basically we can just validate it that way. Not the best way of doing it because, but it's, The only reason why I didn't want to do get type is because essentially, actually, what happens if we go null get type? That's what I'm worried about. So essentially, if you have something that gets passed in that's null, it'll throw a terminating error. It says, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. But scissors just use is, and then basically just pass the type, and then when you're done, we don't have to man it. Like, we can accept an object, but then it has to be validated through the script. Not the best way around it, especially having multiple object types. Or write it with dynamic parameters. That would be another better. That would be a better way to do it. The problem is that you'd have to pass the driver in initially for it to be actually calculated as a dynamic parameter. So you're kind of stuffed either way. Yeah, you're kind of stuffed either way. Oh, well, it's food for thought. You can always come back and refactor that later. It's not the end of the world. So yeah, parameters, blah. Cool, good to go. Yep. Activity button, wait, timeout. Try catch. Yeah. I wonder if they could be param sets. Yeah, that's interesting. Can it differentiate on a parameter set of type? That's actually a good question. One that actually interests me. Let's create a demo. They want to use integer. I don't think it can. No. That'd have been cool if it could, because then you could just overload it. Essentially, you just overload your function, which would be really quite cool. Oh, let's get going. So, okay, cool. All right, so go ahead and click activity. Cool. So what we can do now. So the idea here is that basically I want to provide essentially a whole bunch of framework, and then people can kind of add the different things. So I can start it off with the Reddit one because that was what I worked with. So we can effectively, these will be user customizable activities that people can add. But effectively what they can do is instead of having to overly complicate everything with all the additional handling and things like that, essentially build a framework to be able to support that, and then people can just add what they want on. So it makes it a little bit easier, and they can then we can simplify the PowerShell for people, so it's not trying to handle all this complex logic. They handle simple logic, which then makes it a lot more palatable for people. So, effectively, that's it. I love it. Create a activity. We can even probably, if we know that there's a mandatory sleep that needs to take place, you can actually just inject it into here. Effectively, you can just drop that in there, and we can leave it to be terminating. So essentially, the script will break if it here. So let me just go. You know, let's do driver, pass it through like so. And then from that, select forum, third-party participant forums from drop-down box. So this is where it kind of starts getting a little bit tricky because you've got different things that you need to update in here to do different kinds of entries, for instance. So, for instance, we could probably put that inside a is there a save? Is save an approved verb? I don't like backup. I don't like backup at all. Oh, there is one. How's that? You got for this action, do not use a verb such as save, burn, replicate, or sync. Save. So we can just go save MVP activity. It's one. Go function advanced. Save MVP activity. Essentially, CTAT. We kind of just simplify this whole process. What we can do here is grab your MVP activity up the top here. Paste that there. And then from that, what we can do, while this is kind of like, it's kind of repetitive, but I want to like I said, I want to just simplify the amount of code so people don't actually have to write complex code to get it to work. And just then I can then publish it on GitHub, then whoever wants to go in and add things can. I'm just going to call actions. What I'm going to do is create a new file. I'm going to call it add PowerShell. I was going to call it add Reddit. Got that. Move that up. We can simplify. We can actually. So effectively, this keeps it as simple as possible for people to kind of work with, and then, yeah. So for instance, we got select forum, third-party forums in the drop-down box. The reason why it's in a loop is because JavaScript won't let it to be triggered. So what we can do here. Okay. What's the function alias? Set alias. I want to set alias. Because my idea is to basically create an alias called it try, and then effectively I can then kind of structure it like a try catch. Without actually have to go try a tentative command. Wondering whether we call it try or tentative try. I'm just gonna go set. Oh, set name. So my idea is did I just set alias? I haven't done alias. I haven't added actual deliberate aliases to things. Names core function alias, yes. Oh, whoops, we flipped it the other way. Okay, whoops, that's why. And it's not callable now? You're telling me why is it not callable? What's going on here? I'm just going to restart PowerShell. What is going on here? Come on. Come on. There we go. That works. Okay, this is my theory. So we can say that's cool. I like that. I like that a lot. We're going to do that. So what we can do here is we can say try. Just going to say catch like so. And then what we can do is do that. I really like that. I really like it. Just like the way it looks. Just looks really, I don't know, just looks good. So we're selecting a drop down, activity type selector. So I need to clean this up a little bit too. And then we're going to wait for JavaScript. Is there an approved verb for wait? Wait for that. That looks really nice. I like that. Okay, so and so because we actually have to, we should write a function here to refresh the area. We should refresh the area so that it's so we need to write a function here. So let's go ahead and do that. We're just going to call this refresh, just to make things a little bit easier so that people, when they're writing it, refresh area, just one, makes it a little bit easier when they're writing their code. This doesn't need, this can just be function inline. It doesn't need to be that complicated. I'm just going to put refresh drop down. Like so. It's just an alias for that, so it doesn't particularly confuse people. And then it makes it nice and easy to watch. It makes it, it's so much easier to kind of follow along, especially on a high level, which I like a lot more than kind of. Now the question is, we need to, when you're adding any sort of new MVP activity, we actually do need to select a drop down. So we could even refactor this code into its own function. So we can abstract it away to even simplify that, so people don't even have to do that, which would fix effectively everything. So let's do that. So what we're going to do is, let's just call this I'm just going to call it select area dropdown. I don't know what it's actually called because I don't have it in front of me yet anymore. So, so we're just going to call it select. And what we can do here is go to function in line. Pretty much go and grab new MVP activity. Grab that, get rid of that. So now what happens is pass the driver in, use try. We need to include an area. So let's go string and let's call it it's mandatory. Oh, what am I doing? Camera attribute and mandatory. And what we can say is call this area, and then we can then just pass. Let's just call a selected value. And then what we can do here is then just pass, grab that. I'm just going to quickly copy that back up to the top. The reason why is because I need to preserve that value. And then basically views of answers. I have no idea what we're waiting for this. We can actually get rid of refresh drop down because it's only going to be used here, so we can actually biff that and chuck that back in here like so. If you go selected value, so it'll select whatever the value in the drop down box is, or try to anyway. Have the driver, views of answers, go select drop down element type. So if it fails, if the JavaScript fails, just select the if the JavaScript fails to populate the sub entries within the form, it will re-trigger by selecting the article. Now, the reason why we're using select article is because article is actually the first value in the list, in that list. So hence why we use select article. And then once we've done that, waiting for JavaScript. Then we wait for JavaScript. So let's have a look at wait for JavaScript. Okay, so wait for JavaScript. Is wait an approved verb? What is going on there? I'm just gonna call it wait. Wait for JavaScript, like so. We're passing in the driver and element text, so let's just go param block advanced. Let's make them both mandatory. So essentially what it's doing is, yeah, okay, so it's looking for text to search. I'm just going to call it text to search. This is, again, this is really flaky. It's not the best to use page source and then kind of just try and search for some text in it. For the time being, that'll work. All right. So all we need to do is pass in wait for JavaScript. Get rid of that, like so. It's not right here, that's not right. What is not right here? It's saying, param statement, oh, okay, the reason why it's that. And then we can just say element text to search until. So again, we can actually leverage try for this. Try, and let's just say catch. We've got to retry default time count of 3. Just wondering, can we use try for this? No, because it's not going to fail as per se. But you could just, like, hypothetically we could, it's bad practice, but I could do this. I should just do this. Essentially, if the preference page source contains element text assert, I'm just going to write it like that. We actually needed to throw a terminating error. So what we're going to do is we're not going to do that, because that is not the best way to do it. So what we're going to do here, so because sometimes it doesn't load the elements to the HTML page, just checks if the element text is present, so then continue. So what we can do here, yeah, I think that code's perfectly fine for its initial. It's essentially for an initial, essentially it's just going to loop until it reaches the end state or the end counter, or it's going to fail, or it's going to succeed. Like, we don't care. We only this is essentially testing if the JavaScript's working or not. Yeah, I think that looks good. Cool. We can just use that. So if now we go at that, and we can just pass these in essentially. So essentially, this text views of answers is what we're looking for. To actually determine if it's ran correctly or not. So once we've done that, so when we're adding this, essentially, select area drop down. We just need to select the area drop down. And then within area drop down, we have the driver and the selected value. So if we go back to here, so we've got the driver, which, you know, is the driver. To be honest, we could probably just inherit it somehow. And then we have the selected value, which is foreign third party, this value here. So what we can do here, I'm just going to make it a capital F, keep things consistent. And then that looks so nice. Like, that looks really good. I'm actually really pleased with this. Just the way that you can add an action to the module. Like, it's still quite flaky, But you can see here we added the activity, select the drop down from the driver and then the selected value. And then from that, we can then select the contribution area. What we can do is just create a new function and call it select contribution area, and then basically, so people can then just select the contribution area, and then ultimately, there's still going to be quite a technical part, but which essentially is just updating these elements, which I'm going to leave as is, and then you just save it like that. That is really good. Like, I'm really happy with that. That looks really clean. And so essentially people don't have to write complicated logic and handle all the JavaScript and things like that. So if they want to add, you know, a LinkedIn post or something like that, it'll be, you know, their separate function with its separate parameters of whatever it wants to be. And then it just works. So people can then just essentially plug their code in, or plug their bits and pieces in, and then run it, and then it just works. So they don't have to kind of, and they don't have to write complicated logic. So these kinds of things you don't have to, because I've done all the heavy lifting, which actually is really good. And so all the tentativeness and all that's all handled under the hood. It's all under here, which is really cool. Now this has got the aliases there. Oh, cancel. Save that. Obviously select area drop down, so it'll select the drop down for you. Handle any sort of issues, so it'll wait. Might actually have to start sleep. So essentially if it fails, it'll have a sleep for a second and then it'll reset it on article and then have another go. I really like this. Actually, like, for a project, it's actually really clean. And then we have our tests. So essentially, there's my tests. Everything's basically passed through as test cases. And I'm just basically effectively writing the pesta test case in the test case. I'm effectively writing the pesta test inside the test case. Simplifying the logic ridiculously, which is really cool. Like, that's some really cool. I'm actually really pleased with this code. Like, it's very clean, it's concise, it looks good. All right, let's keep going. So the next thing we need to do is we need to, this is kind of going to have to, like, these kinds of pieces of functionality is going to have to be added as we go. I'm just going to go select contribution area, PS1. Function, advanced. So this is where it kind of, I'm going to start to hit a brick wall. So ultimately, I can't test any of this part of code because I don't have access to it anymore. So I'm just going to see if I can jump on Teams. I'm just going to quickly go AFK for a sec. All right, I'm back. All right, so what we can do here is we're going to call this select contribution area. So like so, we've got that good to go. So what we can do now, I'm just thinking out loud. What I'm thinking we can potentially do here is we have to kind of gut some of this function. Now, this is the problem is I'm kind of hitting a data wall here. You'll see what I mean. So we go select drop down. So you can see here we have a whole bunch of data that it's like things that it's doing. So effectively, this is what it needs to do. But the problem is I need to actually jump into the code and extract all the data, but I don't have, jump onto the site and extract all the data, but I can't because I don't actually know what it is. So what we're going to do we're going to say, I know forum third party, PowerShell, okay, article, other. So this would be every contribution area that would be there. So we have PowerShell other. So we can get rid of article, forum third party, and the cool thing about this is that essentially these things can get added to as people go along. So if you kind of want to contribute to it, go ahead. Like it's 2 seconds worth of work. So essentially we can build the data structure up. If I can't get access, then the community can kind of advance it. So you need to insert the elements, add the HTML drop-down settings. So this is essentially, you got, you selected values, and now these GUIDs actually correspond to the GUIDs within the page. So you have to do a bit of inspection to go find them, but yeah, it's pretty straightforward. So activity type, find us the element, driver. So, same kind of stuff. I might as well add the driver as well. And people can kind of add the already had the driver. Okay, random. Oh, whoops. No. Cancel. Looking in the wrong spot. Where's that? Here, this is where we're adding it. All right, so what we can do here and what we're going to call this, let's call it selected value. I think that's nice and easy. Element ID. Don't need that because we're already thinking we only care about the selected value. So that is all what matters. So here we can just say select contribution areas like so. Pass the driver in. Selected value is by value because it's not PowerShell, it's the GUID for it. And that's pretty much it. So essentially pass that in. for the driver, go find that element, pass it in, good to go, and that is it. So essentially, let's go ahead and add that now. So we've got set the contribution area. So let's simplify this. So we can then just say driver. Honestly, you could probably get rid of that and then just basically say selected value. And we just say PowerShell, like so. And then once we've done that, then basically we can pretty much just then go update our values and then save. So that's it. So I've refactored the code now so that people can now add different activities. So what we can do now is we can create special, like, so the idea is to create specialized activities, or sorry, actions for each type of submission. So if you have a Reddit one and it's, you know, something like that, then you just call that. But we can actually simplify this by doing this. So we can basically say, so we can effectively make this a little bit easier. Clean this code up. So we can do here, say, you know, parameters mandatory, blah, blah, blah. So passing the driver in. Actually, we're going to call them activities. We're just going to call them no, we'll call them contributions. I think we call them contributions. So we can just call add a Reddit contribution. So what we can do here is go rename, like so, do that. So we now got to add Reddit contribution. Value script driver, mandatory element text to search. We can simplify this to make it a little bit better. So we're going to pass our driver through, select the drop down, forum third party. That can stay as is because it's a Reddit's forum third party. We need the contribution area, so we can actually pass that in. So let's call that contribution area. And then essentially we can pass type, or what entries we want to add. So I've just got date, title, URL, description, number of answers, number of posts. And we can make them all mandatory. So let's do that. So go driver, contribution area. And then we got so effectively, we can do that. Essentially now a person can then make an entry and we can effectively just run it from the parent. So it means then person who's adding something can then just go blah. And they can just go, you know, add Reddit contribution, pass the driver in, select the contribution area, set the date, title, description, URL, number of answers, number of posts, and it'll just go ba 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 ba. Save the entry, good to go. That's pretty cool. That's really cool. Well, that's really cool. I actually really like this logic. It's structured well. So, and then you can see here from a coding perspective, if a person wants to actually add items to the code, it's very easy to use. So you don't actually have to reuse a lot of that code, and you have a simple contribution. So if you want to add a contribution function, essentially you can just go ahead and add add your contribution, and then effectively sorry, I'm just having a massive memory blank. Effectively you can add your contributions, but you don't have to. You can essentially reuse a lot of the code. So what we can do is we can just go and then so you can effectively just create a template here. Now, the person who's actually still adding the entry and still going to need to be able to do some sort of troubleshooting, you know, is going to need to actually test the code prior to still running it. But it will work quite well because ultimately it's still quite simple code. So essentially, so yeah, add new activity. I'm just going to call it block name. It's called block. So what we can do here is then just add our select area drop down. Select the contribution area, change it. We can do that. I'm just going to write some kind of basic code like this. And then effectively, that's the template. Like, so a person can then do what they need to do to kind of add things. So that's actually really cool. I like that. I really like it. And then we've obviously got you know, our MVP, our Reddit contribution. So we can go area drop down, select the value forums, third party, contribution, select the value, blah, 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 which is just our contribution area. And that's, yeah. So when a person, so if we would actually bring this all back, oh, we got update element. What's update element? Oh, we're using update element. Oh, okay. All right, so we actually need to create that now. Yeah, you can see here I'm using send SE keys. So what we can do here is we can just say param block string set mandatory. Grab that. Pull the value, pass the driver in. I think I'm not going to pass the driver in. I think I'm going to remove the driver component and just basically assume that the person has actually set up the driver correctly. Or what I might do is just basically have a start driver connects to something, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But what I'm going to quickly do now is I'm going to take a short break and I will be back in 5 minutes. So enjoy the music and I will be back. Muted. Okay, let's carry on. All right, so I've got another half an hour before we'll probably just give it another 15 minutes and then we'll kind of finish this up. So you can see here we're going to update element, and then we're probably going to need to add some Docker around here as well. Update element, that pretty much goes through, so we don't need that anymore. Select dropdown. So that's what the initial one was using. So select area dropdown. And you can see here we've cleaned that up a bit. So we shouldn't need that. I'm just going to keep that there because for the sake of kind of keeping it. It's just I need to kind of make sure that I'm not missing any code before I do that. So we can customize each of our submissions. So obviously we need to connect to the driver. Now I'm just wondering, I think we just leave it as it is. If we're going to use Selenium, just basically start SE Firefox, start URL, bang. I don't think you need to kind of overcomplicate anything there. And then basically we can start sleep 5 seconds. So that is interesting because we could potentially even add a what I'm thinking about is we basically have the ability to pass a CSV in, but we use piping instead. Now, the reason why I'm thinking this is because effectively what we can do within the save activity, we can actually do this kind of, we can actually write a custom back off timer. So the more entries you add, the slower it gets, but the more stable it remains. And gives more JavaScript a time to kind of sort itself out. So when you add, yes, yeah, I like that. I like that idea. So what we can do here, okay, let's kind of refactor this to make it cooler and easy to read too. So first things first, we need to wrap this inside a begin process and end block. Now this has to happen, these items have to happen in each process. You still have to create a new activity for each item. So that's nothing new. But what we can do within the begin block, when I say begin block, we're just going to call it back off timer. We're just going to call it time wait, like so. We're just going to give it, we'll start it off at 1. And then what we're going to do here, we're actually going to work with milliseconds because this is going to make it a little easier to work with. So what we can do here is we need to make a value from pipeline. So ooh, this is going to be interesting. How are we going to pass all those items in through a pipeline? Oh, that's a frustrating one. I don't think we can. No, we can't. I don't know how we're going to kind of add that functionality then, without having to significantly refactor the way that you input data. I want to keep this contribution kind of template simple, but we still want to be able to have a back off component to the code. What do you guys reckon? I'm not sure right here. What should I do? Maybe because ultimately what we want to be able to do is I don't want to have 5 seconds here. That's kind of redundant. I want it to be as minimal as possible. We want to take care of all that. We don't want them to have to manage that. So my idea is what we can do is this. Actually, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to stick in a save MVP activity, so we'll save it. The more entries you had, it's better to sleep for a little longer. We are going to make this code interesting. So what we're going to do, we're going to have to do some out of scope scripting here. Oh, so a variable. We're going to create a variable script. Oh, sorry, a script variable. So the first thing we need to do is says null, so we're going to try and get a variable. We're going to call this save activity sleep multiplier. Oh, we've got counter because it's going to be a counter, and then we're going to use a multiplier. And then what we can do here it's always going to have to be 1, can't start at 0, always equals 0. Like, what's 100 milliseconds? Okay, let's do this. So from 0 to 10, let's say 100 entries. For each object, start, sleep, millisecond. Actually, we need a count. So is equal to 1. then we can just say times counter. No, there we go. Like so. Okay, while we're doing that, and it decides to come back. Dismiss. We need to also get right pose a check it into the statement. That's what we can do. And then what we need to do here is go counter plus path. We need to have an upper limit, I think. I think it needs to be like a 5-second upper limit to kind of ensure that we're not exponentially, infinitely backing off. So, we can just say, let's put a 5-second limit. So what's, if we're saying 100 milliseconds, I'm going to multiply by 100. Oh, we can just, because it's a multiple of 100. What's 5,000 divided by 100? It's 50. So what we got to say is if it's we can just say it's equal to 50. That was greater is equal to 50. We can actually just say it's not equal. That was less equal to 50, then increment. But if it's greater than 50, it won't. And that'll ensure and this way we can ensure that we have a snooze more entries, yeah, the better sleep for a little longer. So yes, equal to 1, activity counter, millisecond sleep duration, 5 seconds. So essentially what this will do, so nobody needs to touch it. We remove this. Effectively self-contain the application. So people can then add their own contributions, edit just work, which is very cool. Yeah. So that's a good day today. We might as well quickly write some more tests for. Let's just go ahead and close or submit BP. Let's go ahead and write some tests, and then what I might do is at the end here, when I sign off, I'll add it to GitHub, and then we can get it published, and people can kind of start working on it. So, okay, so we need to actually add some extra tests here. So we might as well go add some tests. What we might add here is another test. So I'm going to mock get random. Oops. I'm going to mock get random here, and then what we're going to do, we're not calling mock get random, and we shouldn't. can mock write error, and basically we can say should have called it exactly 0 times. It's effectively what we're doing here is got test cases. Where's my test cases? So basically we're still passing the external variable, so that should still fall. And there should be no issues with write error shouldn't be like, which if we call get random should throw an error, but it shouldn't. So we should still have a standard execution. So let's go ahead and run that. Yeah, perfect. All right. What other test cases do we need to add here? Because ultimately we've tested try catch. Like, what about if it works the first time and then it fails the second time? That's the one test case we need to do. Okay, so how are we going to write this test case? So we've got external variable. So we can say just going to give this a value of 0. And what we will do here is if it is not equal to 1, might as well just put this inside an actual thing. We can basically increment. Let's just say it's equal to 0. And what we can do here is we then say throw an error. So we're going to do get random. So that should throw an error. And then we're going to increment the counter. Like so. And then what we can do here is then basically we can just say continue, settle. Actually, no, we're going to need to increment the counter before we. Oh, we can just do it in catch. Actually, let's just do it in catch. This way, we can actually validate the counter's been incremented. And then once it's outside of that, we can then go write output. Let's use CCESS. So essentially, we should still have no error, and result could be a success. And that's really it. Like, we don't really need to, like, we're just only testing to make sure that, yes, we can produce a terminating error, catch it, increment it, try it again, which is it's obviously incremented outside it. It passes, therefore the test should pass. So it shouldn't call write error, and we should have a success. So that is our test. Let's test it. Look at that. Cool. All right, let's just make sure that's yep, that's good. That's really good. I really like that. Really like the format of writing those tests that way too. I don't know, I just like how it's like you've got the mocks, that's where the mocks go. You got your try, you know, your catch. You could literally just put, that's your, you know, arrange, act, assert. Like, and you could put it all in there, but it's just, I don't know, I just think it's way cleaner. It looks way easier here. And we're not writing complicated logic, so like within the, you know, yeah, looks good. And that means our test passed. So we know that it can handle a failure. So that's really it. Like we don't need to really do anything else. Like that's a passing test, which is good. All right, I think that's it for today. I don't think there's really anything else to do. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for sticking around. If you've stuck around for 2 and a bit hours, just over 2.5 hours. And yeah, I think so next week we'll be back. I think it's going to be just doing a bit of mod cleanup for this. So it'll probably be about half an hour of that. If I have a testing environment, we could probably get a little bit more of the functionality added, and so people don't have to do it themselves. And then people can just focus on writing contributions versus then actually having to go and look for stuff in code, and it gets really, really complicated. So that's really cool. Yeah, and then once that's done, we're probably going to move on to my next project, which I've been working on for about a week now, which is the freelancer. So for those that are actually quite old, freelancer was released in 2003. It was the first space trading kind of RPG game. So what we did is we did LAN parties quite a while ago, and basically did a more PvE experience. And then within the PvE experience, we had a lot of basically admins and things like that. And we did, you know, like had to follow a certain story, and admins kind of RPG role played certain things, and it was really cool. A lot of people had a lot of fun. It was an absolute blast. I swear I didn't do it again, but here I am and doing it again. So essentially what we're doing is building effectively a module, repo, which we basically use to be able to mod the game the way that we want to mod it. So I've got a whole bunch of ideas in my head of how I want to do it. And then basically being able to build systems around it to be able to actually support that. So the build is going to be, obviously it's quite extensive. So there's a couple of things that we need to do beforehand, which is, one of them is I need to fix some code here, which it's always when you've got stuff everywhere lying around. So we've got to build some automation runbooks. We're going to be able to need to build a backend. We need to also build, I've got a function app already kind of provisioned, so we're going to build some function apps, some functions in function app. We've got a backend, we've got some tools, we've got a website, so we've got a Node.js website, React and Node.js website ready to go. We need to build that. We then got to kind of build some bits and pieces here. So you can see here, I've got started writing a function to actually import the freelancer RNI files, which essentially just pass them into PowerShell, so we can actually build commandlets around it. So one of the commandlets that we need to build from that, there's actually a couple. The first one is we need to be able to actually go through all the systems in the game. So there's a few here, so we can just go have a look at this one. Effectively, we need to be able to replace everything with nomads, which is a big job. That's a lot of work to do. The next thing that we need to be able to do is, from that, we also need to be able to, let's see if I can find it here. Let's jump, I'll Just quickly search. So you can see here we got BW46 to RHO5 hole. So essentially is what we call a jump hole. So you can effectively, that's how you connect the systems together. But effectively what this does is it says, go here to this nickname and use this kind of effect. But what we need to be able to do is dynamically go through there and rip jump holes out. So because it has to happen on both the source and destination files, being able to do this in PowerShell is really easy. It would be easy because essentially you just load the two files, go and rip them out, and then save the files. So I can go and remove jump hole here. It'll go and find the two connecting jump holes and then remove them, or return a list of which ones you want to remove. So or you could get the jump holes that are connected, and then basically then find the one that you want to remove and then go ahead and remove it. So that's what we'll probably also be doing next week as well. So some cool stuff with Freelancer. So if you're a bit of a freelancer bloke or gal, you can definitely check that out. There's some pretty cool stuff there. So anyway, I'm gonna leave it there for today. Have a good day, guys, and hopefully see you guys next week. Bye for now.